Hello everyone and welcome back to Beneath the Lift Tower, your Northampton Saints fan podcast by fans for fans. I'm joined once again by Jess Keble and Simon Stacey. How are you doing both?
Good, how are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm Charles McGilvray once again. East Midlands Derby. Should we just go straight into it? I mean, what else is there to discuss really? What were your thoughts? What did you think of the game? First of all, I'd like to start by saying thank you to some of the feedback we had last week regarding one of the points was regarding size. You couldn't hear him last week. Well, this week he's fully loaded with a nice brand new microphone, headphones, so we should be able to hear him perfectly well. So let's test that theory out, Simon, and get your opinion on the game.
Cool, blimey! Half time was it was a derby game, wasn't it? Typical derby game. I was a bit worried when I saw the team. Not worried, that's the wrong word. But when we didn't put out full strength side, I was like, oh God, here we go. But the boys did the job, and yeah, we beat them very comfortably in the end. And everyone in Northampton's got the bragging rights again. So all happy.
Exactly. It's a bit of I know why they went with the rotation policy of rotate players and keeping players fresh and making sure that then they've got enough energy to keep the season going. But that game would have been the priority. Yeah. I'm sort of you win that game and nothing else. So it's just a bonus, really.
For that game, why would you do it for that? But I understand why you did it. But just for that game, win that game with a full strength side and rest them for Quins. But yeah, I get why he did it. And it paid off, and Doubt is the Messiah again. So there's no questions to be asked as to he knows what he's doing.
What did you think, Jess?
Yeah, I agree. I think that first half, it's not that I wasn't expecting it to be close. I was expecting it to be close at halftime. I just didn't think we were going to go in not in the lead. That's all. You never want that, especially in the derby, because like you said, they've had the bragging rights for a while, haven't they? We didn't beat them away this year, and then they beat us at home last year. So they've had the bragging rights for a decent length of time at this point. And you just think at half-time going in not in the lead. But I suppose the only positive thing I could think of is that Tigers had a lot of chances in that first half, but they only came away with 10 points, with a 4-point lead. They probably felt they should have been further ahead. We probably felt they should have been further ahead. So knowing that we're still in it, and then 2 tries in 6 minutes in that first half, granted one was obviously a penalty try, but fully felt like it had swung, because I know that I'm sure that Tigers obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about the red card later, but you always think a red card, does it ruin games? But, that came at 60 minutes. We'd already scored, 2 or 3 tries at that point? Definitely the 2, obviously, in the 6 minutes. So it still felt like the tide had kind of turned a little bit before then.
Yeah.
But I mean, it certainly won't have helped them, obviously, because it never does it really? Like, if we're being honest, a red card never does help. But it also isn't a derby without one. So
it was crazy. There was 5 cards in the game, all for different reasons. Whether it was a pretty it's almost when you look back at it and you go, "Whoa, yeah, great, loads happened." It was absolutely crazy. And I think that the best way to describe that first half was exactly the way Tigers wanted it to go, and the word is turgid. Yeah. That I've never seen so many players tie their laces on a rugby field. Like they just wanted it to be slow and turgid and set piece to set piece and a physical arm wrestle, and that's what they made it. And I think what it is it really is showing that there is a little bit of an Achilles heel at the moment with Northampton, and that's at the breakdown. I think in attack anyway, I think the way to target us is to go very heavy at the breakdown and slow up our quick ball. When we're playing our best rugby, we've got the fastest ruck speed in the Premiership. It's well below 3 seconds, and that's a goal, and therefore we keep people on their feet so that when we get that quick ball, we've got players stood up to exploit the space and move the ball. But the problem is, to do that, we're not resourcing the rucks, because it's get tackled, get the ball out, Mitchell takes it away from the ruck, and we're off again. But if you can slow the ball down and put numbers in, well, suddenly you find yourself under-resourced at the breakdown, so then it becomes a fight and turgid and the ball gets even slower. Or you turn in the ball over, and that's what was sort of happening in that first half. And I think there were a few factors then that went massively in our favour that allowed us to suddenly switch on and play the way we play. One was Tommy Raphael went off a head knock just before half time,
Yeah.
He's one of the best in Europe at getting over the ball and just being a nuisance defensively around the breakdown. He went off, and then they got the 2 yellow cards. They got one just before Visa got yellow carded, so they lost him from the breakdown as well. Yeah. And also they lost Shilcock just after half time, and obviously later the red card as well. And what that meant was they couldn't compete at the breakdown because they needed people on their feet to get in the line, and so therefore the breakdowns were suddenly got back to that 3 second, below 3 second, and if we can do that, we can tear teams apart. Like that I think was, it's the way the game unfolded, and we were in the lead before that sort of all happened, but it went in our favour because Tigers I was very worried. I was getting scared about that. Like it was just seems to be going their way, and they've got so much individual talent. Visa and Montoya, and they can make things happen. Really, it was. It's sort of like watching Exeter from a few years back, in the sense of if you give them opportunities in your 22, they will score. Like the Montoya try, and the Jasper Visa try. It's like we just couldn't stop them. We've got a good defence, and we've very good more defence this year, but they got through us like we weren't even there. Like it made it very easy, and it's just that territory battle, isn't it?
Visa
it's a worry. He does, yeah.
He always does. I won't miss him when he goes at the end of the season. He always scores against us.
He's such a big bloke, and he's got like a head.
It's just
what was it? A beach ball. It's massive.
He's just mad. He's such a good player.
Yeah,
he plays for them, but credit where credit's due.
No, I mean it is a bit of a worry moving forward. I'm not necessarily convinced it's a worry this weekend. Forgetting what even day we're on right now, because I think Harlequins like to play quite similar to us. They want speed, and so I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of intentionally trying to slow the ball down to the same extent and in the same way. They're obviously going to try because they know we like to play that way too. But I'm also thinking the week ahead. I know we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves in terms of the podcast and just thinking too far ahead, but with Leinster they will target that because they're not stupid. They're not stupid, and they're, if we're being honest, they're an international side because it's made up of, what did they say, 1 or 2 players haven't played internationally, but they probably will. So you're basically playing a club versus country, and you can guarantee that they will do that to you. And like you said, for 40 minutes, we did not cope with that in any way, shape or form.
I think, look into the Quins game, like I said, we'll look at it in more detail later, but in that specific bit of the breakdown, Will Evans is phenomenal in that area, and then so you got to similar to looking at the Tigers match and how we really struggled to cope with Rafael when he was on the pitch, and we struggled with him in the away match, and it was sort of a worrying going into the game, and it played out that way until he went off. Looking ahead to the Quins game, Will Evans is exactly the same. I have that worry there, and then looking ahead to the Croke Park match, Leinster's sort of ferocity at the breakdown is unparalleled. I've not seen a team like it. And it is. We are such a talented side. The fundamentals of our side are really good, but that breakdown in terms of in attack, it just seems to be something that we've struggled with all year.
There's been a couple. There's been a couple of games where we've been good in that area. There's 1 or 2 games where it's obvious that they've gone in to specifically try more in that area and see what can come from it. It has been really successful, so we are capable, and we have the players that are capable. Just for some reason it doesn't seem to be, like you said, because they just want speed, don't they? They want speed, and they just want quick ball and the ball in and out as quick as possible. But you can't get turned over that many times against, let's be honest, some better sides that we're going to come up against over the next 2 weeks. That's no criticism of Tigers, but they're lower down in the table for a reason, and I think they'll be honest about that. And I think some of their comments after the loss, they are honest about that, and they are aware of that. But we're coming up against Quins, who just put in a ridiculous performance against Bordeaux to get through to the next bit of Europe. We're coming up against Leinster, and then the last game of the season also got Gloucester in the team. Then we're coming up against Bath, so we're coming up against some ridiculously good opposition in games that are must wins. Like, take Leinster out of the equation, because if you think about just the Premiership, at least 2 of those, like you said, are probably must wins at this point. And I would, if I'm being honest, just based on Bath's form and our form when we play at Bath, I'm not writing off entirely, but I'd be surprised if we got a win there, which then means that next week becomes very, very important.
Yeah, I think next week is important, and let's put Quins to one side because we'll get onto that in a bit. But let's go back to the Derby match. Who stood out for you in terms of the players on the pitch?
I'll be honest, again. Langdon, yeah,
Langdon,
and
again,
I would just have Langdon on that list, and just
nobody cares about the wing, couldn't he? Speed for that try.
The speed for that try was outrageous, wasn't it? But it's his work ethic, because there aren't many hookers who get many game involvements as he does. He carries an awful lot for a hooker. He was phenomenal. I think the way the game went, sort of, it brought different aspects, and I think one of the things that shone once again was, like I said last week, make sure your seats are in the right position and your trays are tucked away, because Ram Air is fully operational. His ability in the air, they put a lot of balls up there in that first half, and he dealt with them, exceptionally well. The distance he gets off the ground is just remarkable, and he's so safe, and the sort of agility to then spring out back into the game as soon as he hits the deck he was very safe there. But then you also look at that Langdon try. It obviously came from Dingwall's move out to get it out there. The great, we'll get into Dingwall because I want to talk about him. But then Ram tapped that soft shoulder, got the ball off to Langdon, and boom, away he was. He tacks soft shoulders and gets his hands free. He's a very smart player, very technically gifted, and he's just starting to get back to that form he had before his injuries.
It's almost a shame in a way that Stewart wasn't at 15, because it would have been great to kind of see that as a proper battle. Because ironically, I think Prem Rugby had put up a whole video about Stewart versus Furbank and what that was going to look like. Neither of them were in that position, so all of that was silly, funny but silly. But it would have been good to have seen that. But I also think, talking about Furbank as well, and this is nothing against Ram because I thought he was incredible, but you could also tell as well when Furbank went from 10 to 15, and I think Furbank's good at 10, but when he had to go back and cover, when it's escaping me who it was that went off, but when he had to go back and cover, like the marked difference between how he plays at 10 and how he plays at 15, like he is at 15, and it changes the shape of the game completely.
I would only counter that by saying the shape of the game changed slightly as well, because we brought on Freeman and Smith. We probably brought two of the best.
I was going to get onto that.
So when you suddenly get Mitchell, Finn Smith, Dingwall, Freeman, Ram, and Furbank on the pitch together, and Seabrook was great as well. But you suddenly and Hendy, suddenly the shape of that is a remarkable difference, because the ability for Finn and Dingwall to exploit space is I know I said it every week, but Finn's composure, he's not looking like he's going to be a Danny Cipriani or a Charlie Hodgson type player. He's going to be a Dan Carter type player. He is going to be phenomenal. The try he set up when he identified he was up against Chesham, took it into the space, understood the space he was creating, and just dropped the ball back in for Freeman. It looks so simple, but it is so different.
I also think what helped highlight that too was that Pollard, you've got a double World Cup winning 10. I just felt he was absent for the entire game. And then you see what Finn Smith does when he comes on, because he wasn't on for very long as well. Because I know when I watched it back, and they were talking about the commentary, like, oh, we should make Finn Smith man of the match. And it was like, he's been on for 4 minutes and there was only 5 minutes left. So, but I said, even in that 10 minutes, he did more than that double World Cup winning number 10 did in, the whole game. And I said, it just really highlights to me, like you said, the kind of player he's going to be. But I also want to give massive props to Furbank, because other than, I think, a missed kick to touch and a missed kick at the post, he kept us in it in that first half. Taking the shots at goal, not necessarily easy kicks, taking it, having the confidence to do it. Like I said, that 4-point gap at half time is helped us stay in that and be able to kind of get back in and get a foothold back in. But I mean, even Fairbank will know he's no Finn Smith when it comes to number 10 anyway. You know.
I tell you what he does do better than Finn Smith is his restarts. His restarts are incredible. Like they're better than most around the Premier. He gets the ball incredibly high. Like, you know, I'd almost say he should be taking our restarts even with Finn Smith on the pitch. It's a real skill that he's better at it than him. It was exceptional, and it meant on a couple of times that we really managed to compete for that ball. We actually won it off on one occasion. I think Alex Moon got a knockback because
he did, yeah.
Because he gets it so high, like it's.
Yeah. That's always been our flaw, our restarts. We always kick it way too long, never give the boys a chance. So yeah, to see it actually, so we could compete for it, it was nice to see. So like you say, maybe that's a way going forward.
I think a lot of teams don't pay enough attention to that. You know, it's almost like their immediate thing is like get it as far back as you possibly can because it's gonna. But like if I was Saints' opposition, I'd be like, don't do that because they can run the ball from anywhere. Or like Quins, they can run the ball from anywhere. So kicking it long, almost pointless. Compete. Find more ways to compete. I mean, I appreciate sometimes if it's like, you know, I don't know, you're in the lead by 1 point, there's 30 seconds to go. Yeah, you boot that as far down as you possibly can. But when it's close and you want competition, because like I said, that Moon knockback was, you know, fantastic. And you just feel like, and this isn't like a criticism of Saints, I'm just like in terms of the game in general, like rugby in general. I'm like, we don't see enough of competitions in that particular area.
It's because you should always get the ball back. You know, the reality is you should kick the ball. If you kick the ball long, get a really good chase and get a good defensive set in, they're forced to kick the ball. And if you can pressurise that, you can get into their half and then set from the set piece.
Yeah.
From the line out. That's, I suppose, the logic. That's why in sevens, if you score, you kick the ball back to them, so they've got it. Whereas obviously in 15s, you kick it because you're then going to get it off to the next phase etc. But if you've got the option, like with Fairbank, to get that to be able to compete, it's a real game changer, I think, because it gives you options.
Yeah, definitely.
Finn Smith's is more like that sort of Dan Carter again, that sort of a low trajectory, sort of pushing it, trying to push it almost over the head of the second row, which is it's just a different way of doing it. But yeah, Fairbank, I thought he's sort of coming back to it, and with Ram being so solid at full back, it really gives us options, but also gives coaching staff real headaches on selection. Yeah. You know, because Ram's been faultless, so it's like, you know, where do you bring Fairbank back? I would, but and I've said that so many times, but Ram's ability at the back is really exceptional.
He can slip it on the wing, can't he?
Yeah, that's why I play him. I think he's the perfect.
He can, but then you also question Ollie Slightholme. I wouldn't bench him for love nor money. He's just won 2 hour player of the match, Premiership player of the match. Easy choice. I know we're biased, but easy choice in terms of that this month. And then I wouldn't get rid of Hendy either. I just wouldn't. I know he's young, and I know that, you know, we don't know what the pressure is going to be like, but he's had 3 now games where I'm just like, he's going to be something else. Like the longer and the more he plays. I mean, I suppose the argument will be he is young. There isn't that much experience there. I suppose you could bench him and bring him on as an impact sub, which would have just as good of an impact.
Yeah, they're all so good. You've got to drop someone, haven't you? So
you do,
and it's about functionality of the side as much as anything. And I think with having Fairbank as an extra distributor at 15, it gives you that ability 100%. To get that ball wide and a bit quicker. And then it's a case of who do you have? And Ollie's obviously bang on. He's in the 11 shirt, and I think Ram he's probably deserves the.
Yeah.
And so Henry's just so unfortunate, in my view, anyway, that he comes on and he covers the whole, 13 to 15 really. He can cover that.
Yeah, that's also going to be a useful thing. Like I said, as the run in and Europe continues, like some big games coming up, so having someone that can cover those positions, because you just don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, fingers crossed, nothing does happen to anyone. But we have done some rotation because of number of minutes played and niggles and things. So you always need to have those options. But I would just say, thinking about that kind of back line, I think Litchfield had a really, really good game at the weekend.
Yeah.
Having watched it back on the telly, I was like, that guy is everywhere. He was making tackles, he was making breaks, he just put himself everywhere like an absolute nuisance. And I think, there were a lot of not questions about him specifically, but obviously he hasn't started very many games. I just thought he handled himself so well and put a really, really good performance in, considering, he knows that a full strength team is going to be Freeman over him. Like, he knows that. But he went out and did what he needed to do, but also not necessarily make it as much of a headache for the coaches, because you're never going to not pick Freeman, because that would be silly. But it certainly helps his case in terms of being on a bench or being the starting player when you do have to have rotation. Like, his name's fully in the mix.
Yeah, he just doesn't. He hasn't let us down, has he? If you look throughout, the Gloucester game, for example, when he was playing on the wing, when we were short of the back three players, and he scored that one-day try. He just doesn't, and he does get better. His defensive work is really, really good, but his ability to explode through contact and then make ground. If he gets a loose shoulder, it's not like he gets a couple of foot past the break. He explodes through it, and you've got a line break. He converts half chances into line breaks really, really well. He's in that sort of Hendy mold for me at the moment. It's like a lot of other clubs, he would probably be walking into their first 15, but it's a squad effort across the season, and he's going to get plenty of game time. But you like to say, is he a first choice player at the moment? It's very hard because the talent's so high.
Ludders was back, wasn't he? Ludders was back. That boy, he's built for derbies.
I thought
that was his best performance.
He had a really good game for a long time.
And,
I just remember that run, and when the ball went through and he ran back, and he obviously didn't have the pace in the end, but boy, was he going as probably as faster than he's ever gone. He was like, I'm going to try my hardest to get back there. It's just, for me, it's not necessary for him. It's always been not just how well he's played, but also just kind of the effort levels and the hardness, and like the fact that he's always like lives on the edge. I think that's been a bit of what has been missing, like the edge, but it fully felt like it was back in the derby.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, I agree.
If you can't get it back for the derby, when can you?
Exactly.
So he was fully up for it.
Yep.
Different players have different need different things. Like, certain players need game time to get to their peak, and then other players need rest so that they can peak it for the game. And it's Ludlam, for me, just screams a player that he needs to be playing rugby to see the best of him. And like, he's not a player that you can sort of take out for a couple of games and then right, it's a big game, throw him back in. He needs that run of games. And when we get into sort of selection talk later, it's sort of like, that's hard, because you could say, well, we'll rest him. But the player and the coaches will know that player, for him to be the best at the weekend, he needs probably 3 games in a row to get that rhythm and get going. But he is starting to peak. And if there's any time in a season, it's now. It's that time to come good.
I do feel like as well we have to talk about the scrum, because we demolished it, and I wasn't expecting it, because you've got Dan Cole, who is going to go, when he retires, whenever that ends up being. He may have already announced it. I actually don't know.
No, I think so.
I didn't think so. He will go down as one of the best, particularly from an English point of view. I think he'll go down as one of the best to have done it in terms of scrums. But yeah, we just put paid to that from pretty much the beginning of the game. It's just like a nice thing to see, because I remember, we go back ages ago to the era of like Mooj and Hartley and Tonga. Like, God, I loved watching them just demolish teams week after week. So it's nice to just see that we still have the ability to do that. So it'd be nice to just continue to see that, to continue to build on that and to work on that.
That's down to Ferguson and James Craig, though, isn't it? They're absolutely their techniques second to none, because they're not massive. Our front 5 are not massive compared to some teams, but their technique to be demolishing a scrum like theirs is credit to the coaches and the boys, obviously.
I think you've got to look at the players that to some extent. Like, I think 2 players that make a massive difference in our set piece are probably at their peak of their careers. One of them is Alex Moon, who's unfortunately leaving, but his weight in the scrum, I think, makes a significant difference. I think he's a proper old school tight head lock, and he adds a huge amount of weight through the scrum. And then the other one is, I think generally he's playing the best rugby he's played in years, is Alex Waller. And I can't believe he's retiring playing the
right
rugby.
At the end.
He was incredible against Tigers. Like, he absolutely scored goals, I thought. And to be fair, one of them was like 36 and the other was pushing 40, and it was sort of, but yeah, I thought he was excellent again, and his work.
But I also think
off the pitch.
Yeah. But I also feel like there's also going to be there'll also be the mental edge of it as well, of like, this is my last derby game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go out on as big of a high as I possibly can. And from the second he came out, you were like, he is so up for this. He's so up for like going out in terms of like going out in the derbies on a high. And like he's played in 28 of them.
Yeah.
So over his, because he's been with us, hasn't he? He's been with us for, it's 14 years, isn't it? Like in terms of like at the professional level, like at the senior level, he hasn't missed one.
Yeah. He's,
so it isn't just, so he's got so much, it's not just the experience and like the longevity, but just the fact that he's literally never missed one over 28 games.
They interviewed him afterwards. They said, didn't he have his lad with him? Didn't he run out with his lad? And
he ran out with his kids.
Yeah, he was so emotional. He said he had to sort of give himself a kick up the bottom to get his head back in the game because he could cry later. But yeah, what performance, eh?
Yeah, I think it was really nice because he said that Lewis had let him run out first, and he was like, I really appreciate it because considering it's also Lewis's last derby, but he gave him the opportunity, and yeah, like you said, you could just tell from kickoff it was like he's up for this. He's going to go out having completely demolished Dan Cole. I mean, it's an incredible way to go out, isn't it? Really?
yeah. Well, hopefully he's got a few more games in him, but yeah. No, like I know you don't know how he feels after the games in terms of the impact on him, but he is performing so well, and like he in my view, he's got years left in him. Like it's going to be a big loss to lose some of his ability next year. The other
it always reminds me as well of Tom Wood, because Tom Wood was still playing really good right up into the end, but he said what people don't realise is it used to take me a day or two to recover, and then it started to take me most of the week, and that's when he knew at that point. So for all we know, it's more like the recovery time for Alex. It was like, I can go out and put in an incredible shift, but if I'm only just ready for the next weekend, like your body is naturally slowing down in terms of those recovery processes. Because Tom Wood, I know in interviews, he was very candid about that. He was like, it is the recovery time. Like he always knew that as soon as it was taking him longer to recover, that was his time. So like you said, that's probably what the decision has come down to. I can't imagine it's come down to performance, because like you said, he's still very much on the top of his game, which again, that's also a really good way to go out. You don't want to go out having struggled for a few years before you retire struggling to keep up. Like go out on top.
Go out on a high, definitely. You'd hope that the club, or you'd think the club would do everything they could to give him an opportunity to continue playing, because he does. It might be the fact that they see his role differently, and therefore his salary would be different, and therefore he's like, well, I'm not taking the risk for that amount. We don't know. It's like completely outsider, but him as that sort of bench player or third choice prop with those two young loose heads in Iogan and Haffa just seems like the perfect blend, because I think they're two phenomenally exciting players, but they're obviously very early in their career. And if you've got a Waller there who can come in, put these performances in, but also pass on that knowledge, then it would be a perfect blend. And we're probably looking for an older player to come in to play with them, but Waller would be it'd be amazing to try and keep him, but it's obviously not the case. I think the other player I want to point out, and I think we should cover off the red card as well, but the other point is Mitchell. I think the turning in the game in terms of how we started to take control was he started to take the line on a lot more. He started, rather than just in and out, getting the ball in first hands or getting it into the forward hands to take those one-out drives, he started challenging the line and moving the ball in those closer areas. So we were not allowing them just to line us up. He started challenging the defence and then pulling the strings, and it started to make a big difference. And that was, I know it then suddenly went massively in our favour with the cards and the head knock and all that sort of stuff. But I think the cog had started to turn in our favour because of Mitchell, and I think that's why he got man of the match. I think he started to sort of feel what was happening and take control of the fixture individually almost.
Yeah, I also feel like it's a big thing considering his opposition, right? So Sam Portfleet is very much in the discussion in terms of obviously England. He's already played for England, and he's very much always in the discussion with Alex about like which nine is going to play, which nine is going to start. I mean, obviously I'd pick Mitchell. I mean, come on, but
it's no brainer.
It's laughable that was the way. It took Van Portfleet injury for Mitchell to go to the World Cup. Like,
as a force.
Laughable.
I've always said that, like, I'd love to have a conversation with Borthwick about what happened there, because he went from literally fourth choice, so not going, to going and immediately becoming first choice. I was like, what happened? Someone's obviously said to Borthwick, right, now that he's actually in the squad and you've picked him, I'm just going to speak up and say he needs to start. And I mean, he's far and away the best 9 in the league, one of the best in the world right now. I still think he's probably at minimum second place to DuPont, potentially Gibson Park too. But, he's still up there, I'd say, in like top 3.
100%. He's absolutely class act. His ability to put speed on the game is really second to none. I mean, it's similar sort of player to he's probably something in between the two of those. He's not necessarily the physical ball carrier that DuPont is, and he's probably not necessarily the delivery of ball that Gibson Park is, but he's in between, and he's amazing at both of those things. But they'd probably just edge him out on that, individually.
Yeah, in like the individual categories,
Yeah. This is speed as well.
He was. Yeah.
It's speed and the break, his little drop and his little dummy. We all know he's going to do it, but no one can ever defend against it. He does it every time.
It's that arc, isn't it? He just goes.
Yeah, he just steps, dips, and arcs, and he's like.
You can see, you're right. You can see it coming a mile away because he shifts his body into a particular way. You're like, here it comes, and it's like, if I've spotted it, they've spotted it, and yet it's just like you said, it's the speed and just the talent and the ability that's just like, well, it doesn't matter. He's gonna get past you. That's just the reality. But he's gonna make his way through. He's gonna get the offload off. He's gonna do whatever it is.
Because
not saying that.
We run that play where he goes on the loop. It's often Courtney Laws that he gets at first receiver, and then he's got the option to give it back to Mitchell, who's run the loop, or take himself, or give it inside. And we run that play all the time. It's never as good when it's anyone but Laws. Laws, like, is so good that he makes it work. But I think we did it a couple of times at the weekend with, I'm not sure who it was. I think it might have been Coles. Who sort of took on the role, but it wasn't as effective. But it just gives Mitchell the freedom to pick a target like a tired prop and just go, right, see ya, off I go.
I mean, I must say though, like I would still die on the hill of Curtis Langdon being man of the match. Right, if I'm being honest. I remember, obviously they joke about with him, but I remember when the camera's on him and it was announced as Alex Mitchell, and he jokingly says that's a joke, and I was like, I kind of agree with you here, mate, because I think twice now, I think there's 2 games where I've thought he's man of the match and he's been done over for someone else, and the team around him have just been cackling with laughter because they think it's hilarious. But yeah, no, I think I felt like, and again watching it back, I was just like, it was so obviously Langdon for me. And again, this comes from someone who absolutely loves Alex Mitchell and think he needs to stay with us until the day he dies, but I just thought I think he's one of the best signings we've made in a really long time. I think he's fantastic, and I'm really hoping as like the summer and autumn and all the internationals come that he ends up part of that conversation, because I think it would be a mistake for him to not at a minimum be part of the conversation, because I think he puts paid to most hookers in the league right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Only him and Dan, probably. Only him and Dan. They'd be my 2 choices.
And I'd say
agreed.
No, I agree. And I never rated George. I think his physicality is not nowhere near the level of those two. But the only thing which is different, I'd say, which is probably an issue for both of them, maybe more so Dan, is their line-outs are not their strength. We lost a lot, and it might be the conditions, but we weren't great at the line-out the weekend with Tigers, and that affected a lot of things as well. And you've got an option. You've got 4 options in that, and the team that they selected. You had Ludlam as a jumper. Augustus jumps as well, to be fair. Not that he's exceptional at it. And then you've got Coles, Moon, and Timo as well. So you've got like the options to create a really effective line out there. And it wasn't the best. And I mean, Dan's very new to it and isn't great at it.
Yeah, I think the problem that, like you said, that Langdon will have is that it's very hot and cold in that area. He either hits all of them or he misses a lot of them. Like, there doesn't seem to be like it's not consistent in that sense. Like you said, that might be the issue, but I just think what he does around the park is literally second to none. And I mean, it's the, like I said, the ball carrying ability, the speed, like the speed enough kind of sets him apart. Like the fact that he scored that down the wing is a joke. Like, the players that he bumped off to get through them is absolutely ridiculous, and no hooker should be able to do that. And but he did, and he did it with ease, and like you always felt like he was winning that battle.
Thing was, we didn't have Laws playing either. That's a big tag.
Yeah.
So obviously he's probably the line out. He's the line out general probably. So that obviously that could affect the calls. It's not always the thrower if they don't make the right call and lift the right man at the right time. So
no, exactly.
It's
normally not the hooker's fault. It's a team effort for sure. I think Coles would have been calling it. I think he normally does. The educator.
He does normally, yeah.
But someone needs to tell him he's not Sonny Bill Williams. Like last week he was running lines like Will Greenwood. This week he was trying offloads like Sonny Bill Williams. The man's a centre at heart. Like he I think the more and more I think of him, he is an out and out six. Like he just fits that role perfectly. I know we've got the world's best ever six at the moment, so it's hard for him to play that role every week. But he is a six. He gets around the park. Like the two options he went for the offloads and mucked them up. They were the right decisions. He should have gone. The skill wasn't quite executed, but that comes with like the Litchfield catches the one under the post and he score in, and if I think it was back into Litchfield where he actually passed it to their player on the inside on the offload, that would have been a break as well. There was about four outside him, so it was the right decision to go for. He just didn't quite pull it off, but yeah, he is out. He is like a centre playing six at the moment. He's a very unique athlete and a unique player. There aren't many players who bring what Alex Coles to the pitch. I'd love to see him a bit more physical, but then you detract from that. So, yeah, he's a really great player. I mean, in terms of man of the match, mine's the same every week. It's half Dingle, half Moon. There's a really good article in, I think it's the Telegraph, something by Stuart Barnes talking about Fraser Dingwall, saying he's our version of Conrad Smith, and I couldn't agree more.
Kiwi.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. He's a tremendous player, and he was great.
It's just like, for me, it's not just that he's so good at what he does, it's the amount that he does. I don't think he's ever stopped a second in his life whenever he's on a rugby pitch, ever. And just so much goes through him. I think that's the kind of thing that you notice. Like, pretty much every move you see, he is part of it in some way or another, usually more than one way, which is kind of the key thing. And like I said, I can't remember if it was the same article or not, but like the title was very much like England need to look at him again, because he played for a couple of games. I thought he played really, really well. And then Lawrence came back in, and look, I get it. I'm not saying anything's bad about Ollie Lawrence. I think he's fantastic. I think he's really, really talented. But I'd still pick Dingwall.
Yeah, I think we just last week, went before selection, obviously, we were sort of not sure whether Dingwall was going to be fit, and we sort of spoke about the differences between what Dingwall and Litchfield would bring in that role. And actually what we got was both of them on the pitch.
Both,
They complement each other really well. That's what I would have with Dingwall and Lawrence. And I think that's a perfect
together
partnership. I think you've got everything there you could possibly want. You've got the explosive power of a Lawrence, and then just the technical brilliance and intelligence that you get with Dingwall and the organisation skills. For me, that partnership outweighs anything that's got Henry Slade in. And Henry Slade is a very talented player and what have you, and I just always think he's got a mistake in him. But I also don't think he brings the same level of ability and power and options that pairing would. And he also Slade's would be a brilliant bench option, and he can cover 3 or 4 positions.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, we're not here to talk.
As we're talking, I was going to say, as we're talking about centres, we should talk about the card.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, is it too easy to say? You go through the process. There was forceful contact with the head, 0 mitigation, red card.
It was, unfortunately for Kata, he left them no choice. And it's as simple as that. He left them no choice. And you could tell by his reaction as he walked off that he got what he thought he should have got. Like, obviously, no one ever wants to get a red card, but there was no gesticulating, no, oh, are you sure it's not a yellow? It was just, no, I screwed that up and I got it wrong, and I'm getting the result that should come from that. Because like you said, it was one of those weird ones where you actually look at it in full speed and it looks worse than it did in slow-mo. Because weirdly enough, in slow-mo, like, a lot of contact happens sort of like all at once, like not just the head, but like quite a bit in the body. And you couldn't quite get the impact of how fast Kata was running in, and therefore the actual force that went through. And so obviously Christoph, having looked at that, was thinking yellow card. And then the TMO obviously disagrees and says, I need to show you this in full speed. And at full speed, there's no other outcome that comes. He's coming in from quite far, a lot of speed because he's very fast, and he hits him on the head, and like you said, there's no bend, no attempt for bend, there's no nothing. And so some people probably will always disagree, there's always disagreements in red cards, but for me that felt really, really simple, and like Kata gave Christoph Ridley and the team literally no other decision that they could have made.
Yeah, the problem is they know the rules now, don't they? I obviously want to protect the players' heads, but it's a contact sport. Some of these cards are ridiculous, but the rules are there. If you contact with the head, there was no slowing down. It was straight on it. It's a red card. He couldn't do anything other than that. But it's in the old 10 years ago. That's just play on. Unfortunately.
No, exactly. But 10 years ago, they were swinging punches and getting
exactly.
I think the reality is like
that's how it should still be.
Yeah, exactly. We should go back to that. But the people get sort of almost caught up in that when reality is the laws are very simple.
Yeah.
Was there force or contact with the head? Yes. Is there any mitigation? Has he dropped suddenly? Has it? Is it a passive tackle? Is there any there wasn't any. So it's a red card. Like you started red, worked down, and I know people have their opinions on how the game is, and they want it to be more and all that, but that's not part of the discussion.
It's just so hard, isn't it? It's so hard when you're on that pitch, running at that speed. You've got to dip and tackle, and you just make that one slight little movement. You're like, exactly. Oh, that's it. I'm going. I didn't mean it. Yeah, but I'm going.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think you can. The thing as well is obviously in that game, Miller Mills gets a yellow for something similar-ish, another head contact. But you can see the difference. Like you look at both of them, there's a clear distinction. Like Miller Mills was standing still. The tackler came to him. He did not go. Sorry, the player came to him. He did not go to the player. It was a bit less force. And like I said, that was a passive. That was a that was a passive situation. Whereas Kata, as you said, he's got that speed, and he said nothing intentional about it, nothing malicious about it, just an accident. It's just almost like it was so fast, the time to react didn't exist. But because he'd made the decision to make that tackle, it's still obviously his fault. He apologised to Dingwall before he went off, and I think he'll probably plead guilty. And I think, I wouldn't want him to have a massive ban for that. I don't know his past record, so I can't really attest to that. But for me, it still feels more kind of like the lower end of kind of.
You imagine it'll get reduced.
A ban in terms of
3-week ban, won't it? But that's the end of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
you're thinking a 3-week probably. You're thinking a 3-week probably with the 1 week if they do the tackling school.
Maybe. Yeah.
So he may still have one game left in him in the season, but by that point, looking at the maths and the reality of it, Tigers are probably. I'm not going to totally write them off because they have a way of coming back, but they're probably out of it by that point in terms of the playoffs.
They're good. They're buying. Goodbye. They're done.
No, I do. But the maths are so close. I never want to go like, 100% they're not, because this league has been absolutely insane this year, and you have no idea what's going to happen if we're being honest. But no, I think realistically they're out of the race.
I think.
But it's hard when you get a ban and you can't do anything to make a difference to that. You can't help that cause, if you know what I mean.
Exactly.
Drop your angle when you tackle.
It's difficult. His job there is to, rugby's a violent sport. The goal is to impact as much pain as you possibly can when you're tackling someone within the laws of the game. And so his job there is to be incredibly physical, give Tigers a platform to attack on, physical carriers, but also be forceful and physical in defence. And that's what Dingwall does for us as well. And it's just happens that he's gone to try and do his job, and he's made an error in a split second, like you said, and that's costing it cost him, and ultimately probably cost Tigers the game. Definitely made a big difference in the
actual score line. Yeah, especially you think about the Exeter game. I don't want to go off on a tangent of it too much, but the collision in the air with Faye Waboso. And at one point, the ref wanted to card him. And I remember just thinking, but it's the definition of a rugby incident. They both get hurt. And like you said, but it is a violent sport. And I do think we're starting to turn the tide back round to things that make a bit more sense. Because I think he almost got a card for that. And I think that would have been a farce, because you can see his only crime was he couldn't jump as high as the other player. why would we send someone off because he couldn't jump as high, when the reality is he had his eyes on the ball, he had his hands on the ball, and he nearly caught it.
That's the rule, isn't it? It's always on the eyes. If they're looking at the ball,
where are they looking?
Exactly.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's a totally different thing to the high tackle laws, right? Very different. But the emphasis always seems to be on the player who's comes off worse. You know, if you're competing for the ball and you're chasing for it, it's all the responsibilities on you to make sure that the player in the air comes down safely, right? They never talk about the concept of the player jumping into the air having any responsibility for their own safety. You can hurl yourself into the air knowing that if you get touched, you're down, even if you're putting yourself into a position where you know there's going to be a player, right? And that's why they need to. It's very difficult to put a law that fits all scenario, but it's
every scenario,
it's very hard for them because again, they are paid to chase that ball, put pressure on the tackle, on the catcher, aren't they? It's like it's very difficult. I remember Jamie Elliott getting red carded for one, which is like looking at it going, what could I have done, sort of thing, you know. But anyway, let's look ahead to the Quins match.
I feel like before we should do that, though, we have to quickly go back to last week's predictions and see, because I'm not sure any of us were that close.
No,
I must say, though, I'm pretty confident I was the only one that predicted a score in the 30s and we were going to get 5 points. You little pessimistic people didn't think we were going to get the 4 tries.
I'm not pessimistic. It's the derby. It's a derby, and we went in as favourites, and that's never good in my view.
I always had the confidence that the 4 tries would come.
Hands up, I was wrong. I'm glad I'm wrong.
I got the actual amount. We were all way off. I think I went for an 8-point swing. Way off.
Yeah, I was way off as well. I was much tighter, but then I didn't predict a red card. Can you? You can never tell. That's the thing.
That's true.
You sound like one of their fans. Blame it on the red card. Yeah.
Well, no, I think it had an impact.
Yeah,
for sure.
It did. Yeah, I just want to say one final point as well. That Finn Smith drop goal was quite frankly offensive. Yeah, and it's either offensively good to us or to Leicester. It's just offensive. But it was absolutely incredible. It was probably my highlight of the match, despite everything that happened. Because I was like, you didn't need to do that, but you just did. You wanted to rub their faces in it, and he probably also, as part of it, wanted to get a bit of practice in. Because for all we know, drop goals are going to be very important as we get to like potentially close games. But I just thought, I was honestly cackling when that went over.
Funny the fact that they should definitely have had a penalty off the breakdown. Like with Issa was on the ball for ages, and they just
for years
didn't see it, didn't give it, and then we just got the drop goal off the net off that ball. They should definitely have got that. Not happened. They should have got the penalty. But anyway, it couldn't have happened to a better side.
Yeah,
I agree.
And on to Quins.
On to Quins, yeah, very interesting scenario because it's a game at Twickenham against a team that are very good and can really compete and have shown how good they are. But the following week is one of the biggest games in the club's history. My view is the preparation for Croke Park should have already begun, and there just happens to be a game on Saturday. It would send a very rotated side based on who needs games and who, and it's sort of or who would benefit from playing rather than not playing. And it's, in my view, it's almost a case of choosing players I would definitely not want to be playing in the game against, and they should be wrapped up in cotton wool and sleeping in oxygen tents, just ready for Croke Park. But
it's the hard thing when you're fighting on 2 fronts. But I'm going to go against you here, Charles. I think for me, the Prem is still the one. I think, look, I never want to say that Saints are going to lose, but I think what do we have our best shot in? It's the Prem. And I think that game against Quins is going to be tight and it's going to be difficult because it's Quins and you just never know what Quins you're going to get. And even if you've got a 20-point lead, it means absolutely nothing, as we know with that team. And I think, I don't know, I think you go as hard as you can for both of them, because I think if, again, we'll talk about this next week, if I'm being honest, I don't think our chances against Leinster are strong enough to risk the Quins game. And again, I don't ever want to say that I don't think the team is going to, but we're playing Ireland, if we're being completely honest. And I think we're an incredible side this year, but I still think in terms of like Toulouse as well and Leinster, we're still a step below. Do I still think we could do it? Yeah, I think there's a chance, but I don't know. I feel like I'm for me personally, and like I said, it would differ person to person. I'm much more put the eggs in the Prem basket, and just see what happens. But it's difficult. It's very difficult.
We've beaten them before, though.
Yeah,
we have.
Viva.
You don't want to have any like ifs or buts, do you? You want to go into that game at Croke Park knowing that this is the best we can put on the pitch. And if we get beat, beat, right? But let's focus on that game and go. This is us. We're making a statement that because if, let's face it, right, if we go to Croke Park and win, we then go into a final, which in reality, if we won that, we would be the best team on the planet at the moment. Because looking at the Southern Hemisphere teams in the Super Pacific at the moment, they're really not looking that great. The Hurricanes are looking good and the Blues are all right, but their performances are generally not on level, I don't believe, at the moment, with the likes of Toulouse and the likes of Leinster and the likes of us. And if we go into that, like, what an occasion, it's one of the biggest moments in the history of the club, that game at Croke Park. Let's just go for it. You
100%. You 100% have to go for it. Like I said.
And I also think that there are plenty of players in the squad who are not going to get considered really for that Croke Park match, but have been obviously fantastic all year, and quite frankly, they deserve to contribute. And if you unleash them in that match, I wouldn't rule them out getting the result anyway.
Definitely not.
Litchfield and Munger and Angus Scott Young, right? They've been tremendous all year. And I don't think we're losing a tremendous amount starting with them. I just to run through this sort of side that I would be thinking, right? I would be going, right, I want Iogan and Waller fit for Croke Park, so Haffer would start. I want Matavesi and Curtis fit for there, so Robbie Smith would start. Trevor Davison, he should be wrapped up completely, and Hilly and Elliot Mills. And then in the second row, you've got Timo and Munger, who would, I'd happily, because I want Moon wrapped up and I want Coles wrapped up. And I think Ludlam needs games, so I'd stick with him. I would stick with him. Angus Scott Young, I think there's no reason, he's been great this year, so he hasn't had a lot of games, so I'd play him in, and then it's a choice of whoever you think you're going to start at 8 v Leinster. I'd have the other one. So if it's Graham or Augustus, I'd have the other one against Quins. Alex Mitchell again needs wrapping up. So Tom James has been fantastic all year. I don't think we miss out. And again, I'd have Thurbs at 10. Give Finn Smith keep him wrapped up, and then Litchfield.
I do still think though that you're still going to need some of them to come off the bench against Quins, just because I'm always wary of going into a game like Leinster having completely not played the weekend before. Obviously you don't want anyone to get injured, but you could bring, like they did last time. Finn did 10, 11 minutes.
I think he came on about 60th. He had about 20 minutes, I think.
Sorry, 20. See.
Yeah.
But you could still bring some of them off the bench if necessary, just to make sure they've got a little bit still in there. But
we're 10 points off 5th, aren't we? There's only 3 to go. So obviously you want a home semi. So you could really forfeit the Quins game, target the Gloucester game, and one win might do it, because everybody else is playing each other, so they're all going to drop points. So I've not gone into all the ramifications of who plays who and what points we can win, but we need literally one more win, and we're guaranteed a playoff place, aren't we? I think.
And all we realistically need from the Quins game to keep ourselves safe for another week is just a point. And I'm confident that with whatever team we can take out, we'll score 4 tries. Because I think one thing that the Bordeaux Quins game did show is that Quins can score tries, but they can let them in. And so I'm fully confident that we would get, let's say an LPB, a loser bonus point in terms of getting the 4 tries. Because like I said, we're 5 points ahead. So you take 1 point from Quins, nobody can catch you. Yes, it becomes horribly tight. But then, like you said, you get a 5-point win against Gloucester the week after, 2 weeks after, then you're safe, aren't you, already? So it is a game that you can, and like I said, some people have questions. That's the thing. I can't see that happening. So you have to get, I would say, a point from Quins, and the 5 points against Gloucester. I think you get those in the bag, you're okay. Yeah, the thing is, the team won't go in with that mindset anyway. The team will go in as like, we need to beat Quins because you want to beat Quins because they're a big scalp. Again, this season, they were a big scalp. But agreed, I think we still have a really good shot with some of the people that are in there because Quins are going to be doing the same thing. Because one thing you did notice last weekend is how absolutely shattered they were, like before you even got to the end of the game. All of them, because of the effort they had to put in the week before, looked done. So I would be surprised if you see some of them next. Keep saying next weekend. I'd be surprised if you see some of them. I'd be surprised if you see a Marcus Smith, for example, because he in particular looked about done, like before you even got to the end of the game. So they're probably going to do the same we are. They probably will rotate, and they'll probably rotate more heavy than we will because they've had to put into humongous shifts.
No, I agree. I think you've got to look at what other teams are going to be doing as well. And I think Quins, again, they're in the same boat as us. So, like, they might be looking to rotate as well. You look at Gloucester. Gloucester's focus now is not on the Premiership; it's on their Challenge Cup campaign. So, them coming to the Gardens, that might be a game they don't actually want, and therefore, that could be a good opportunity for Northampton. The Bath game, Finn Russell, he's potentially out. They're taking him week by week, but he could not play. He might not be playing, and he's a huge factor in their side. I wouldn't want to go to Bath when needing points, but if we could get 2 points, if we could get 2
Gardens without him. Bath didn't have him at the Gardens, and you could see the difference. It's amazing.
But then they beat Exeter?
They did.
They did, didn't they? And they did that without him, and they did it with ease without him. And I would say as well that like it kind of leads into this whole thing of like I really feel for Orlando Bailey because he puts in some really, really good performances, but it's all. I remember David Flatman had spent loads of the first half talking about Finn Russell, and then in the second half he went, "Oh, it's really unfair to Orlando Bailey. We always push this narrative." I said, "You've just spent 40 minutes pushing the narrative of what they're going to do about Finn Russell."
Yeah,
everyone's always pushing that narrative, and they played exceptionally well without him. I mean, they're a different side with him. I'm not going to deny that, but they could still beat us without Finn Russell. I think they could beat lots of people without Finn Russell, if
Yeah, exactly. I think it's if we could get 2 points, the losing bonus point and the 4 tries in the Quins game and win at Gloucester were probably enough, right? But I honestly think
I would say we only need 1 point against Harlequins because I said we're already 5 ahead, so you get the 1 puts you 6 ahead. So at that point, you're uncatchable. And then I think if you get the 5 against Gloucester...
I have done a bit of the maths of all the teams.
I can't engage in maths.
And where I think points might go, and I think because of Saracens on the rise and the way they play, if they could beat Bath, which they possibly could, we could end up being very tight with them in second, third. If we don't start picking up some more bonus points are going to be pretty key in the running. So I think But I honestly think we could send a very changed side to Twickenham, and all those players were desperate to contribute, desperate to add to the squad, and desperate to put their hands up for Croke Park and semi-finals could pull off a result. I don't think the side is a bad side. Like you say, if you've got a backline of James, Furbank, Litchfield, Hutchinson, Seabrook, Hendy, Ram. It's a pretty good backline. Like, yes, you haven't got your Dingers, your Finn Smith and your Mitchell, right? But you've still got a really good side. And the forwards, again, Timo's an international forward.
Timo was great over the weekend. He won some really fantastic turnovers.
Angus Scott Young has been terrific at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Like it's not a bad side if you drop some.
No, not at all. No, not at all. And like you said,
But like Jess said earlier,
we'll do it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Harlequins will probably rotate more because they're playing Toulouse. Toulouse are the best side in Europe.
And you could tell, and you could tell pretty early on, like I said in the Quins. Who did they play again at the weekend? Why am I forgetting everybody who played everybody? Was it Sale?
Yeah, they lost to Sale.
It was Sale.
37-31.
And it's like I said, they played almost the same team that had played the week before in 30-degree conditions, which is awful to play in anyway, and probably takes everything out of you in a game that they had to play an 80-minute performance on literally their best form. And you could just see against Sale, and they had to go strong against Sale, didn't they? Because they're in the same boat as some of the teams, like trying to get into the top 4. but they just looked out of it, and they looked out of it really early on. And so I think, unlike us, I think we may still see like a Freeman and a Smith potentially on the bench to make maybe 15, 20-minute performances. I can't see that for some of their players. I think some of theirs just won't at all, because they've put in 2 kind of 80-minuters. I think anyone that's put in 2 80-minuters for Quins over the past 2 weekends will either be benched or they won't play.
It's a big pitch, Twickenham, as well. I know it sounds silly, but it is a big pitch compared to a lot of the Premiership grounds, and it's a hard, firm pitch as well, so you get a lot more running on it. I think because it's a hybrid pitch rather than a natural one, so you get a lot more running. I think we need to wrap this up, but my concern would be Will Evans. Can we deal with him? But it's sort of I would go, and it's always a nice day at Twickenham, right? And the thing is, it's a very different atmosphere. It's the atmosphere we've had at the weekend, East Midlands partisan crowd on top of the pitch, really into the game, sort of a bit of aggro, what have you. You go to Twickenham and it's just a lot of people having out for a nice day out. They're sort of more interested in what the vendors are selling in terms of halftime snacks and what the price of Guinness is rather than the game, because Quins don't get 40,000 fans every week, so it's a very different atmosphere.
It is. Well.
It'd be a nice day out. It was great, and I hope give some opportunity to some players, just so that when we get to Croke Park, that's it. That would be the moment of the season almost. Whatever happens afterwards, it should be incredible. But anyway,
so what are we thinking to finish then? Yeah, we've got to finish on predictions, and then I think both teams are going to score 4 tries. I think both teams are going to get bonus points. I think our defence is much better this season, but I think Quins their attack is very nice. So I'm going to go with 31-28 to us, obviously.
I was going to go 28-24 to us.
28-24. Okay. I can't actually bring myself to say that Quins are going to win. Like, in my head, that might be what happens, because I think we will send a rotated side, and I think also Quins might sort of be forced into playing a stronger side than they want to play, because it's the big game, it's their big summer game, and they can't
summer kickoff.
They can't.
That's what I was going to say, because
they can't send out the midweek.
Hey, that could work out for us, because if that strongest team is as knackered as they were last week, I think we'd probably put pay to them quite easily. So that could work as well as them rotating.
I'm hoping that we do rotate, but I'm hoping that the players that come in make real statements, and they show that the reason why our first team is so good is because what they put them through on a weekly basis. You've got to tackle Lichfield or Angle Scott Young in training. That's going to set you up, isn't it, for tackling anyone else in the Premiership? So I'm going to go with a 33-35 us to win, but it'd be a big flowing us, backwards and forwards, lots of tries.
Yeah.
No defense.
Yeah, we're all going close here.
Everyone knackered. Gaps everywhere. Yeah. Radford absolutely losing his mind every now and then because of the tackle, but that's what I'm going with. But anyway, any other business for anyone? Anyone want to add anything else?
Nope.
No, I'm all good.
I think we've kept people's time enough already.
We probably have, but yeah. Brilliant for everyone. Thank you very much for listening once again. Please leave your comments and let us know and give some feedback. But thank you very much for listening, and we'll speak to you next week.